all factions trying to expand and control the empire. I guess just the biggest difference would be the size and the scale of it. BGS is on a smaller scale. Minor factions usually are only in a couple systems, whereas, of course, the power is we can control several systems, and we span across the entire bubble. Now, by design, each power technically works against each other because we're fighting to control the bubble, and of course, that's why it's called PowerPlay. But as player groups, we have, of course, formed alliances. Of course, the feds have combined together to form the FUC, or the Federal United Command, and we as Imperials have joined together to sign an agreement called the Ziada Agreement. Now, Ziada stands for Zimina Torval, Yuri Grom, Ashling Duval, Denton Petraeus, and Arissa Lavigny Duval. Basically, it's just if we just help each other out, we come to each other when we need help with our objectives, and we just help each other out, basically. So, in a nutshell, the way PowerPlay works, the mechanics, there are 4 stages. There is expansion, there is control, there is undermining, and there is fortification. So as an initiate, one of the biggest things that we push, of course, is the fortification of our adopted systems. That's Nagi, Krinbea, Priva, HIP 16460, Okaidi, and I forgot the last system. I'm not sure if anyone can chime in with that last system. I don't remember it off the top of my head right now. Actually, give me a second here. Newcomma. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so the fortification is the adopt of fortifying our hold over our controlled systems. The way that works is we go to our headquarters and we pick up supplies and we deliver it to the headquarters, or sorry, to the system that we want to fortify. Now, the idea behind this is that it takes, basically, it costs us resources. It costs our power resources to be able to hold control over our system. And so if we as players provide those resources, then it eases up the process and the financial burden on our power to control those systems. So I'll get into the actual details of how that works later, because these are more on the planning details. But fortifying, basically what you should understand is that it eases up our economy. It makes us have to spend less of our command capital to control that system. Next thing is undermining. Undermining is where we go to a different powers, usually a Fed's control system, and we kill their power play ships in those systems. What that does is that literally just undermines their control. This is what we do with this is the idea is to create more cost for them. That's what it does mechanically, is it creates a higher cost for them to control that system. Because if you think about it, like if there's a riot in a city, then the police have to go out, they have to respond in force, and of course that's going to cost them money. And so basically it's just the same kind of idea. Undermining is going to help us in that it attacks our enemies' economies. Expansion, what that is that's when we go to a system, and basically we have to prep a system for expansion. I should probably start there. Preparation is where we go to a nearest control system and we pick up Lavigny corruption reports and we haul it to a uncontrolled system. Now, the way this works is our power expands. We prep systems by revealing the corruption within the police force. That's basically because our power is the emperor. That's one of the things that she does, is she wants to rid the galaxy of its corruption. So we haul those corruption reports, and if we have the most hauled corruption reports, or if we have the most hauled power play commodities, then we will expand into that system, or we will expand into the system the next cycle. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't have push start.
let's see here. So that's preparation. The thing that we should do with prep, that you should know about prep though, is leadership. The Imperial leadership will always determine which target should be prepped and undermined. This is to combat 5C expansion. 5C is fifth column. Basically what it is it's commanders who pledge Arista Lavigny Duval to basically just to hurt our economy. They want us to expand into systems that are bad for us, which I'll get into those details. Once again, that's a mechanic, so I'll actually get into the mechanics in a little bit. So after preparation, if we successfully prepare a system one cycle, then the next cycle we will expand into that system. Now, when we expand, what we do is, you remember how we were hauling those corruption reports in the previous cycle? What that does is that reveals all the corruption. So the basically Arista Lavigny Duval's Shield of Justice, or the Imperial Navy, will go into a system and they will attack and try to kill the corrupt system defense forces. That's why when we're expanding into a system, we have conflict zones, and if you go into those conflict zones, you'll notice that it's the Imperial Navy fighting the corrupt system defense force. And what we want to do as players pledged to Arista Lavigny Duval is we want to go into those systems and we want to kill the corrupt system defense forces and those conflict zones and those crime sweeps rather. That will help us expand. And if we have the most merits by the end of the cycle, of course, we take control of that system and we expand into it. Now, that's basically the overview of it. None of it really makes too much sense without knowing the mechanics. So I'll go into the mechanics. Just keep in mind that the mechanics are really detailed and it's really kind of number crunchy. So if you guys, seriously, if you have any questions about anything, feel free to stop me and ask me, okay?
So I got a question before you get into that. So let's say I start playing right now, right? Where can I see what I could do at this point, at this time, in order to, to bring the most contribution to the power? Like whether I should be expanding or,
So our first priority every cycle is always going to be fortification. And the reason behind that is because we don't want to lose control over the systems. Like we don't want to lose our hold over the systems that we have, over the systems we control. So when we fortify a system, not only does it negate our upkeep cost in command capital for that system, but it also makes it to where if we get turmoiled, if we get put into a state of turmoil, we will not shed that system. We will hold that system even if, basically a fortified system doesn't get taken into consideration for turmoil.
Okay, so the priority should be fortifying.
Absolutely. And if you don't have access, if all of you want access, go ahead and DM me after this, and I'll give you access to our PowerPlay channels. But every single cycle, we post priorities for fortification, for undermining, and everything. So leadership will always post those priorities, so that way you don't have to do the brain work and figure that out, because it's a lot.
So you would always know what you should be doing in terms of PowerPlay in the PowerPlay channel, right? And there will always be updates.
Yes, there will always be updates. And on top of being in this Discord server, I also highly recommend you guys join the ALD server, the Arista Lavigny Duval server. There is a link posted somewhere. I believe it is in resources. Helpful resources. Let me see. It is not, but let me go ahead and post a link in Barracks really fast. Give me a second here.
Okay.
Invite link to the ALD server in Barracks. I won't be able to verify all of you guys right now, but if you just go in and post that you're from Lavigny's Legion in the invite channel, I'll go ahead and I'll get you guys verified as soon as I'm done with this lecture. So yeah, we'll always determine those for you, because we don't always take a system based off of it being profitable for us, or we don't always try to. We have, like I said, we have alliances with other powers. So sometimes if they really need help, what we'll do is we'll be helping them out with their powers instead of doing something that would be ideal for us. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions before I move on to mechanics? Okay,
Tell me.
so the currency of PowerPlay is called command capital, and it's not something that you can actually that we as players can directly manipulate because it's something that's based off of what our power controls. The way command capital is earned is through our control systems. This is where it ties in very closely with BGS. So every control system has a 15 light year bubble. That's what we call it. We call it a bubble or a sphere. And the systems that fall within that sphere, they give command capital to the power based off of their population size. So the higher the population, the higher the command capital that bubble will earn. So say that you have a system, a control system that has like 50 systems within its 15 light year bubble, but it's only like each system only has a population of like 5 or something, then you're going to get very little command capital from that system. But say you take a system, control system, where there's one system in its bubble, that has a like 50 trillion population or something ridiculous. I don't think there's anything that actually has that big of a population. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd have a much higher command capital from that bubble than you would from a system that has 50 systems in it with very little population. So that's how the profit from the system is determined. And then you have to take into account what's called upkeep costs. Upkeep costs are determined by that system's distance from the headquarters. Of course, our headquarters is Kamadenu. So the further away from Kamadenu the system is, the higher the upkeep cost that we have to pay in command capital for that system is. Then the final thing, sorry, give me a second here. We have what's called we have base income, we have default upkeep. I'm sorry, guys, I'm still trying to get this pulled up here. Actually can't get this pulled up. Okay, so there's default income, there's base upkeep, and then there's overhead costs. Overhead costs weren't always a thing, but they were implemented to keep powers from getting too big, which it didn't really work, to be honest. But what it is based off of the number of control systems that power has to pay a certain amount in CC per control system. So basically, since Arissa Lavigny Duvall, Felicia Winters, I think Zachary Hudson has the maximum amount as well. We all pay the maximum overhead costs of 62.1 command capital per control system. They did that once again just to try and keep a power from becoming too big. So I guess to give an idea of numbers, if say a control system that we want to take has a base income of 100 CC, that's actually a pretty decent number. It's not great, but it's not terrible. 100 CC is actually pretty average for control systems. But say it's 80 or 90 light years away from Kamadenu. That would give it an upkeep cost of around 40 CC. So that's 40 CC just right off the bat, subtracted from that 100 CC base income. So that already puts us down to only a 60 CC profit from that. And then we still have to pay the 62.1 CC overhead cost. So the 100 CC income system actually would not be profitable for us because we'd actually lose about 2.1 command capital or CC from taking that system and controlling that system. However, fortifying a system negates the default upkeep cost. If we can fortify a system to 100%, then we do not have to pay that default upkeep. That goes back to me saying basically we're giving aid, we're relieving the financial burden off of our power for controlling that system. Does that make sense? Now, another mechanic here, going on about mechanics, is undermining. What undermining does is undermining negates the base income for a system. So if you fully undermine a system to 100%, and they don't the control power does not fortify that system, then they still have to pay the default upkeep for it. They still have to pay the overhead costs, and they do not get the base income for it. So that 100cc system we just discussed, we would not get the 100cc base from it, but we would still have to pay the base 40 command capital and the 62.1 overhead costs, and we would not get the profit from it. That's the benefit of undermining. Now, there's also canceling, which is another thing. It's when a system is undermined to 100% and fortified to 100%, and if that happens, then that system is just treated as if it was never touched. So you would have to pay the base upkeep for it. You'd have to pay the overhead costs, and you would still get the base income. Now there's another thing called turmoil. Turmoil is the way we can attack powers. If we reduce a power's command capital balance to below 0, then they have to shed systems to be able to maintain their command capital balance. And they will shed systems until they go into a positive balance. Now, usually the way command turmoiling works is a pre-programmed algorithm in the game goes down a list and looks for the highest base upkeep systems. And those highest base upkeep systems are going to be the ones that go into turmoil first. But if you also remember, I said that we can fortify systems to try and keep it out of the turmoil consideration. So the benefit of that is we can't fully control which systems are determined for turmoil, but we can influence it. So this is both a positive thing and a negative thing. In an ideal world, what we could do is say we were getting turmoiled and we knew we were getting turmoiled ahead of time, which usually doesn't happen, but just say for shits and giggles that we did know, we could go through and we could fortify all of our profitable systems, regardless of whatever their CC, their default upkeep is. If that system is profitable for us, then we could fortify it, and we could hopefully not have it go into consideration for turmoil shedding. Another thing that we could do in an ideal world, now this isn't an ideal world, it's not something that we would do because it's actually considered a fifth column tactic, and it's not something that we do, is say we wanted to put an enemy power into turmoil. What we could do is we could go through and we could pledge their power and we could fortify their non-profitable systems. That way, even when they do go into turmoil, they would hopefully shed good systems, but not shed those unprofitables. Once again, that's considered a fifth column thing, so it's not something that we actually do. But in an ideal world, it's something that we could do. That's basically just how the mechanic works, the reason that was implemented. So there's also, we've covered undermining, fortification, covered expansion, turmoil. I guess going into another mechanic here would be weaponized expansions. What a weaponized expansion is it's something where we expand into a system, not necessarily because it's profitable for us, but because it's more unprofitable for whoever we're trying to attack. I guess to explain this, the system that we've been trying to expand into for a while, I think it was Yanaroni's, was a weaponized expansion, if I remember correctly. It was not a profitable system for us. In fact, we ended up paying 44cc per cycle for that system. But it attacked Winters for 66cc. So it damaged them more than it hurt us. Now, the way that works is when we take a control system, if there is a system that is overlapped by two control systems bubbles, then the income from that exploited system is negated. So neither power will get the income from that system. So that's the whole point behind weaponized expansions. I mean, I guess you can extremo. Is that extremo? It is indeed. Okay. Anyone else have any questions so far? I know I've been going on about numbers and stuff, and I really don't want to confuse anybody. So if anybody has any questions, please ask. Okay. So that pretty much covers undermining, it covers expansion, it covers preparation, weaponized expansions, and everything. So now I guess we can get more into the alliances and specifically how they work. Federal United Command as an alliance, they really are a hauling power. They do have some PvP presence, they do have some combat presence, but what they really strive in is they really strive in hauling. So we usually end up actually losing prep wars against them, which is kind of demoralizing. We've won a couple against them, but they haul. That's what they do. Basically, the entirety of their player base, they all go in type 9s and type 7s. I've actually seen quite a few in type 7s, to be honest. But they haul so much. And that's what they're good at. But when it comes to our expansions, because our expansions are combat-based, it's actually much easier for us to win one of our expansions than it is to oppose them in one of their expansions, because when they expand, what they have to do is they have to haul stuff. And once again, you have to keep in mind, I said that that's what they thrive at. They are a hauling power. So whenever they're trying to haul something, they tend to do better than us. So prep wars is another thing I should talk about. I'll get to that in a second. As a combat power, once again, we do expand by combat. Denton Petraeus also expands by combat. I believe Zachary Hudson expands by hauling. Extremo, do you remember if that's right or not?
What?
Zachary Hudson, he expands by hauling, doesn't he?
I don't think so. I thought he has a crime sweep type deal. I can check right now if I can.
Yeah, I can't remember which of the Imperial powers expands by hauling.
It's definitely Winters.
What, the Imperial?
Oh, which one of the Imperial ones, man? I think it's Aisling Duval, yeah?
Is it?
Yeah,
yes, you're right. Yeah, it's Aisling. I'm sorry.
I'm online right now. Let me check. Yeah, they're trade expansion.
Okay. Yeah, so Aisling Duval, she expands by hauling, which usually is easier, but here's the other thing that you have to keep in mind. Aisling Duval's player base is one of the most scattered player bases. It's really unorganized. So they have a lot of, actually, that's not accurate. It's not that they're unorganized. It's that they have a lot of people pledging for just the prismatics or pledging just because space waifu. So they have a lot of fifth column activity, and it's not like fifth column for the purpose of being fifth column and like trying to hurt the power. It's just because there's a bunch of people who don't know what the hell they're doing that are pledged to Aisling Duval.
Oi, cockboy.
What's up?
Hudson does expand via Actually, every single thing is combat, like except for fortification. Hudson's a purely combat power.
Okay, that's right, because he's military. He's the president, and Felicia's the shadow president.
She's the one that has, yeah.
Okay,
what are our expansions based on?
Our expansions are based off of combat. So we go into a system that we're expanding into, and we drop into crime sweeps, and we kill the corrupt system defense force ships. We take the side of the Imperial Navy vessels, and we kill the corrupt system defense force.
The way that this works is that because ALD, like lore-wise, she just wants to expose political corruption, and then when we're actually expanding, that's when they're all uncovered, yeah. So that's when we kill them all, and that's what the crime sweep is we're just killing all the corrupt.
And our other methods are also combat.
Yes.
Like besides expand, like fortification and whatever is pre-expanding.
Okay, no. So fortification, we haul fortification supplies from headquarters. The whole idea behind that is, like I was saying before, if we have a riot pop up or something, imagine like they're in a city, a riot pops up, and the police force has to roll out. They have to go there in mass to defend the population and try to calm everything down. That's going to cost a lot of money for the police force. So us fortifying those systems, basically think of it as we're donating money to them, so that way it eases the burden off of them. So we haul
Mhm.
those
Makes
supplies
sense.
to those control systems from our headquarters, and it negates the command capital upkeep for that system because of
Okay.
And pre-expansion, the preparation, we also haul. And that's because we're hauling corruption reports. And once again, you have to keep in mind, we, as a power, we expand because we want to negate the corruption in the galaxy, basically. So we're uncovering. Preparation is the process of us uncovering that corruption, and expansion is the process of us stomping out that corruption.
Gotcha.
Let's see here. I think I've basically covered everything so far. If any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Seriously, it's we have a lot going on. Zimina Torval. Let's see here. Actually, I don't pay too much attention to Zimina Torval. Give me a second. Let me look her up so I can give you more details.
Let me look up that girl. You know what I'm saying? Woo!
Okay. Let's see here. Let's see.
She's pretty hot, in my opinion.
Oh my God, Extremo, please no.
Dude, it's Gilf. There's MILF, the Gilf, and then the space waifu. And then there's Imperial Black Porn.
Is that literally just Ashling? I think they expand by combat. I think Torval expands by combat.
You can all see this shit when you guys go into Galactic Powers and you see how they fucking expand. You can read it in the. She's a trade expansion to.
It says her economy is based off of slavery, so yeah. Slavery and precious metals. Yep, okay. So if you go, like Extremo was saying, if you go into the game, you go to your right-hand panel, your status panel, and you look at the, pull up the Galactic Powers menu, you can click on every single power. You can go to their overview, and it will tell you how they expand. It will tell you about their ethos. It will tell you about their pledges, basically what you get from as a benefit. Now, through Arista Lavigny Duval, our benefit that we get, of course, is we get bonuses to bounty hunting. And our bounty hunting bonuses stack a lot. So on a really good cycle, we can get up to 4 times the amount from every single bounty voucher. That, of course, is if Arista Lavigny Duval is first place in the Galactic standing, and if you're rank 5 pledge with her, then you can get up to 4 times the bonus from bounty vouchers.
I have a question. If I'm doing bounty hunt for like if I'm doing conflict zones for our manufacturing, do I have to give in the bounties at a specific place?
You want to give those. Generally, you want to give those in at a Lavigny's Legion control station. There's
Like
very few
any
times
one of them or a specific one?
the way that those combat vouchers work is because war is a universal state. If wherever you turn them in, it's going to affect that war. As long as you turn it in at a Lavigny's Legion control station, it's going to affect that war.
The one that I fought in, right? No matter
Yes.
where I turn, even if I turn it in a different system.
Yes. Now, Extremo is more of the BGS expert on that, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, and he can probably give you more details. But as far as I know, that's how that works.
Okay, thank you.
Yo, if Elite is displaying on 4K, in 4K, then why does Hollow Me look so bad?
That is a really, really good question. Let's hear. Ashton, did that answer your question? Okay. If any of you guys have any more questions, ask, type in barracks. I'm reading barracks, keeping an eye out for anything that comes up.
Look at my new PFP.
I do see that.